Well, I think I found one of the most clueless people in finance. It's this guy who says inflation...
Ooh, baby, what a way to start a video. Oh boy, folks, okay, this is going to be an interesting reaction video here today. We're going to react to Meet Kevin's video on Sasha Yanshin, and I want to share kind of my perspectives on this subject here today. This is a big subject. There's a lot of people that believe the CPI numbers are really bad. Some believe they're not that bad, and so we're going to get into the details of this video and kind of go through the numbers and talk about this a little bit, right? Now, before we get into all this, this was a straight kind of smackdown video in terms of Meet Kevin coming out with this video. Now, let me first kind of give you a little reference here. I don't think Meet Kevin did this video just to do this video. I believe he's probably been waiting in the wings a little bit to make something, okay? This tweet came out a few weeks ago. In this tweet, number one, bad news for Tesla investors. Number one, a real estate agent with his small peepee has sold all 3 of his Tesla shares and is now short Tesla because of inflation. Wah, wah. Okay, that's a straight shot at obviously Kevin there, right? The PP ETF, real estate agent, those sorts of things. So, and then he took shots that looked like a chicken there. And then I think this was Gary Black and Ross Gerber, I believe, in that situation, right? So Kevin was probably waiting for a situation that he could jump in and go on the offensive here. And obviously he found his kind of, let's call it his way to do, an attack. Let's call it that, okay? Because that's what this video is. It's a straight takedown. Every battle is won before it's ever fought. Artist Sun Tzu, you know that one? It's a good one, right? And, everybody's always in competition, right? Finance, no different. In any industry, it's competition. And, we're all given this data about who watches whose channels. And guess what? Who's my number one competitor? Oh, it's myself, of course, okay? My number one competitor is myself. Who's my number 2 competitor? Meet Kevin. Who's my number 3? Tom Nash, and basically all other finance creators in general, especially if you talk stocks, you're a competitor, right? And so people kind of get into this competitive, nature, okay? And so we're going to get into this. We're going to get into the details. And by the way, I don't think it's always the best thing to attack somebody based upon what they used to do, because I don't know, maybe Kevin, maybe that got him in his feelings. I don't know. It depends on if somebody's proud of what they used to be or not, right? I always talk about me being a manager at Quick Trip, and then sometimes people try to use that against me. I'm like, I'm proud of that. Like, that's not going to affect me at all. Like, you calling me a gas station manager is like, to me, that's a flex. Like, what are we talking about here? So anyways, man, that's the situation. By the way, it was a decent day out there in the market, I got to say, considering after CPI numbers came out yesterday. You might have thought some of these stocks would be down. It was actually a really good day, up $16,000 public count here today. So I'll take that given, the hotter than expected CPI there. So let's go ahead and get into the details of this video. I agree with some stuff here in regards to Sasha. I agree with some points that Meet Kevin makes here. And we'll talk about this. Appreciate y'all joining me as always. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you for being subscribed to the channel. Keep me ahead of my competitor, man. My competitor, this financial education guy. He's my main competitor. That guy's freaking tough. That's all I got to say about that. Let's get into this.
Is a scam. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe we've got an inflation problem. Prices are way too high, and wages haven't caught up to the level of price gains yet. But the reasons and rationale that this person gives about why inflation is a scam shows you how little he actually knows about finance. Now, you might be wondering, why put this poor sap on blast? Well, it's misinformation like this that gives people a misunderstanding of how finance actually works.
So that's part of it, but I deep down, I think this has something to do with it. That's just a little hunch. Now, and first off, let me just say this about Sasha and Meet Kevin. Sasha, I don't know personally. I got a tremendous amount of respect for him. I think he gives a lot of good videos. I've watched many of his videos over the years. I think he makes a lot of good points. Do I agree with everything he says? No. Same thing with Meet Kevin. I think Meet Kevin brings out a lot of great points. Do I agree with everything Meet Kevin says? No. Right? But I don't even agree with all my own family members on all of the subjects. Like, we should never all agree across the board, right? But with that being said, I think Meet Kevin brings out some great points sometimes. I think Sasha brings out some great points sometimes. And so, respect.
Misleads them to think that things are a problem when they aren't actually a problem, and then they miss what the real problem is. The real problem we will talk about at the end of this video. First, I want to give a shout out, though, to James Cat on X. His ticker, he's too many stocks here. His username is TSLA Fan MTL. He's got a great account, shares great perspective, so shout out to Mr. Cat. So here's what he says is scam number 1 in the inflation data, and there are 3 of these, all of them wrong.
This is the first huge fuck-off scam within this inflation data. It's not the data itself. The data is accurate.
Okay, first of all, he thinks the data is accurate. That we know is false, but we'll give that one a pass.
But here is the chart of energy inflation data within these CPI reports. So the index is at 100 in January 2020, and you can see that today, electricity is 30% more expensive.
So we can agree on that. Energy prices are up 31%. Great, that's a good baseline. But what you're about to see is a spewing of BS, of tying things together to make it seem like there should be a logical conclusion. I'll play it together and then I'll break it all down to show you how you get manipulated. But be careful as you watch this because it's very convincing.
Well, here is the price of gas futures. Gas prices went up like a rocket when Russia invaded Ukraine, which the energy companies used to jack up their prices. But then the prices of the commodities have come right back down. Gas is now 10 to 20% cheaper right now than at the start of 2020. Well, here is the price of coal over the last 5 years. And yes, coal today is almost 80% more expensive than it was back at the start of 2020. But the price of coal has fallen really sharply in the last few months. At the same time, the biggest electricity provider in the United States, Duke Energy, made record profits in 2023. Interestingly, their operating income in the most recent quarter increased by 54% year on year. Do you know why? Well, the cost of natural gas for them is down 62%.
Yeah, so that's definitely a help, no doubt.
Year on year.
But it doesn't make up the whole number, right?
The fuel is down 11% year on year. So they're not paying as much for their commodities, but your electricity bill is up, so they're raking in the cash. After rate hikes this year, Pacific Gas and Electric Company, the second biggest electricity.
In regards to Duke Energy there, he brings up a great point, right? And these energy companies have been making some pretty incredible record profits. And what's essentially happened, I know even folks complained to the AG here recently in Nevada, and natural gas, ridiculous. I mean, the prices they've been charging for natural gas is insane. And basically, you know, kind of a little bit of a scam, and the AG agreed. And so now the energy company here that, you know, I think it's Southwest Gas, they're going to drop all their rates moving into next year, essentially, because, woof, man. And the thing with these sorts of industries is you have no choice. It's not like I can say, oh, you know what, I don't want that gas company. Give me another gas company, or give me some other gas company. There's one option. There's one option, and that's it. And that's why you have to get the government involved at the end of the day if they're jacking rates.
I saw a 25% increase in their profits in 2023. I think you get the point. The energy companies are raking in their cash.
He almost had me for a moment. But wait a second. What do we have here? Let's go piece by piece. PG&E announces nearly 25% increase in profits for $2.2 billion. That sounds like this corporation must be really, really greedy, and the executives are probably rolling in dough. They're probably laughing their way all the way to the bank. And I'm not here to shill for these corporations. I don't care. I'm not exposed to their stock. And I'm really glad I'm not, because PG&E, oh no, what's this? It had a high of about $70 and it's down 76%. Why could that be? Oh no, the CEO resigned. Oh no, massive net income losses to the tune of billions of dollars, well exceeding the gross profits they're earning now. Oh man.
Yeah, but to be fair, that was off of one-off factors there, right?
That's not exactly what Sasha told me. I didn't get the full picture. Instead, he's pulling Chapter 11 bankruptcy data to show you that revenues finally are starting to grow again, and the company can finally start paying back its debtors in its Chapter 11 reorganization, so they don't have to fire all their customers, leaving more of a monopoly and less choice around for all the other electricity consumers. The company's actually trying to come out of a hole, and this guy is saying they're greedy profiteers. Now, I'm not saying they run their business great. Obviously, they went bankrupt for a reason. They made some oopsie-doopsies, and they probably deserve to be going through the hell. But I'm just saying, this is a very different picture than what Sasha is telling you. But it's not just that, my friends. Sasha tells us that things should be getting cheaper.
Yeah, PG&E has proposed a $13.5 billion settlement for the wildfire victims across the state, right? So they've been dealing with that, and that, at the end of the day, has the major effect on, obviously, its profitability over the last few years.
Solar panels and wind farms are cheaper to build. Well, let's break this apart. Duke Energy, the company he talks about, only produces 1.8% from hydroelectric and solar. Now, maybe they could do more. Yes, we can install more solar panels. Great. Solar panel prices are coming down. Does that mean solar panel inverter prices are coming down? Not if you look at Enphase. They're holding prices up, even though volumes are going down. So no, you don't only get strict price decreases. And just because panels are down doesn't mean the cost of installation is down, doesn't mean the cost of the whole package is down, doesn't mean the cost of financing is down. Then he tells us that, but Kevin, what about windmills? Those are getting cheaper. He doesn't show us a chart of that because he's full of crap. Wind turbine prices have jumped in recent years. It's a simple Google. It's not that hard. Now, yes, natural gas prices have come down.
So you can tell it's definitely personal between these guys. It's definitely personal.
Natural gas consumption has been rising. And the problem with rising natural gas consumption is the actual price of natural gas is only one part of what goes into the cost of what you pay for electricity. The natural gas doesn't just teleport to your cooktop. It doesn't just teleport to your water heater or your furnace or your boiler. It has to be distributed to you or transmitted to you. And that makes up roughly 40% of the cost. So no, it's not just the cost of natural gas. Besides, it's also not just natural gas that actually goes into...
Fair points.
Fuel production. It says natural gas and fuel oil makes up about 33% of Duke's consolidated energy generation. Okay, so what have other prices done? Well, he rightly pointed out that coal prices are up substantially. Of course, he tries to water that down by saying, but they've come down a lot recently. Are you kidding me? Look at the chart. I don't even want to do the math on this, but I'll do it anyway. We're at 284 versus 190. 284 divided by 190. Not Pokemon, that's funny. You're up 50% on the price of coal still from the bottom. And remember, folks, natural gas is just part. We've got right here coal making up 12.8%, and the cost is up 50% for coal. But it's not just coal. It's also natural gas that's liquefied, LNG, liquefied natural gas. Liquefied natural gas prices are actually up a good chunk from 2019 and 2020, anywhere between 30 to 50%, depending on from what point you measure it. And not all natural gas is transmitted to people through pipelines as compressed natural gas. Now, again, yes, the prices of natural gas in aggregate have come down, but again, it misleads you because not only do you have distribution costs, fuel oils, and coal, and very little renewables that actually go into electricity generation, but most natural gas is negotiated on a contract. That means even though if you say, if we just bought all of our electricity right there at the bottom, we'd have cheaper natural gas, we might actually still be paying natural gas prices from the levels of the last 6 months,
Sure.
thanks to negotiated contracts to make sure utilities don't run dry and run out of electricity, so they don't have blackouts like the frickin' loser government in California.
Before we go further here, yeah, 100%. And I remember even at Quick Trip, right? Obviously not a utility company, but we sold obviously ridiculous amounts of gas, right? And so we actually had professional traders that worked for Quick Trip that, you know, could have worked at probably Goldman Sachs or many other institutions. These folks were always trying to get the best price and always trying to buy at exactly the right time and those sorts of things. And sometimes these guys really got it right. And that would actually affect little guys like me, managers of the stores, very, very positively, because sometimes these guys would get it really right and the profitability we would make per gallon sold would go up immensely. And so all of a sudden that profit bonus at the end of the month would be something insane. And was like, and I heard about, there were some other ones that they did really successfully back in 2009 before I started with the company, that there was actually some managers that were making more money than their bosses, the supervisors, for a short period of time because the traders got it so right and the profit per gallon was ridiculous, because usually the gas business, very small margins in there. So just a little random story. So 100%, you know, and if the problem is if these electric company, gas companies get it wrong in terms of what they pay and they don't really buy anywhere close to the bottom, they buy these contracts out, you know, you aren't getting the real deal you think you're getting.
California that so heavily regulates the natural gas industry that you can't actually provide enough natural gas, and then guess what? You end up getting power outages. So there are a lot of factors at play here, from politics to regulation to clean environment policies to high financing costs to distribution costs to wages that are going up to labor that's going. There is so much more than just saying, hey, I know coal is up, but natural gas is down. So the corporations are being greedy and they're robbing you. This is the problem with finance. Finance is so much more nuanced and complicated. How about fuel oils? Remember 33%, as they mention right here, 33% comes from natural gas and fuel oils. We don't have the exact breakdown on how much of it is natural gas, but at least some of it is fuel oil. Okay, are fuel oil prices down? No, of course they're not. We're going from 184 to also 281, also up about 50% on fuel oil. So wrong on turbines, wrong on all the costs associated with solar, let alone the percentage that they actually make up energy costs. Wrong on not mentioning distribution or labor or politics or regulation. Wrong on not mentioning the cost of fuel oils. Wrong on talking about PG&E's finally profits so they could pay back the people that they screwed in bankruptcy because they had bad business practices. Again, I'm not here to not bag on the corporations. I'm just telling you the fact that electricity is up 31% doesn't mean the cost of energy production is down. And what's remarkable next is then he tries to blame.
So to be fair to Sasha here, I don't think, and those are all fair points Kevin makes, but I don't think Sasha doesn't understand all those factors Meet Kevin just spoke about there. I think he does understand those factors, but what I believe happened there is probably Sasha is trying to condense his video, keep it down, and so he doesn't want to get into these details. But these, as Kevin points, and it's a very fair point, those are very important details to obviously discuss in a situation like this, right?
Car insurance is a scam because car insurance is propping up U.S. inflation. It's nothing else. It's car insurance, and that's a scam. In fact, we're going to look at Berkshire Hathaway to see how much of a scam Berkshire Hathaway's Geico is. Okay, but before I get to car insurance, let me look at what Berkshire Hathaway said about their energy business, because obviously he's not going to talk about the Berkshire Hathaway energy business because it would go against his argument, and he's cherry-picking data. What did Warren Buffett get from his energy businesses? Well, let's see. After-tax earnings of our utilities and energy business declined 40.3% in 2023 compared to 2022. Oh, yeah, that wouldn't help his argument at all. But let's see where Berkshire Hathaway is finally making money. And let's look at
car insurance. Car insurance is up 22.2%.
So, but to be fair here, right? To be fair, the earnings decline in 2023 reflected lower earnings from the U.S. regulated utilities, reflecting increased wildfire loss estimates, as well as lower earnings from our energy business and real estate brokerage business. So, interesting.
What did Warren Buffett get from his energy businesses? Well, let's see. After-tax earnings of our utilities and energy business declined 40.3% in 2023 compared.
Also, I heard, I believe State Farm just pulled out of California in regards to, I don't know if it's all insurance or home insurance recently.
2022. Oh. Yeah, that wouldn't help his argument at all. But let's see where Berkshire Hathaway is finally making money. And let's look at
car insurance. Car insurance is up 22.2% year on year. But here is the most recent quarterly report by Berkshire Hathaway, who just happened to own Geico, one of the biggest car insurance companies in the United States. And their profit from insurance absolutely exploded in 2023. No other year comes even remotely close. And the reason was earnings in 2023 reflected the impacts of premium rate increases and lower claims frequencies. I think that's pretty black and white, or maybe black on yellow. The insurance industry is just taking the piss because they can, posting these insane profits that they've never ever posted before.
Now notice what he does right here. He literally skips right over what goes against his narrative, which is that insurance expenses are lumpy. This is a lesson you have to know about insurance. Insurance, some years are really good, some years are really bad. It's kind of like you get crop insurance when you have fields of strawberries. Some seasons are fantastic, some some seasons you have a total loss, and it costs insurance companies a lot of money. So they save up for that. Again, I'm not saying insurance companies can't make a lot of money. They do, and they can, but they also lose money. I mean, consider for a moment, and then we'll point out exactly where we're getting screwed here and misled. Consider, for example, Allstate. They don't always make money. See when this line here goes negative by billions of dollars? Those are losses, trailing 12-month losses exceeding $2.5 billion. But where's the manipulation in this?
But to be fair here, right, this is, we were just talking about finance being nuanced. Why is that happening, right? What are the details around that? Because there could be some very specific reasons. It could be some big mistakes Allstate made, right?
Video? Well, it's right here. I mean, he literally refuses to underline or even speak out loud because it goes against his narrative. He says earnings in 2023 benefited from relatively low losses, reflecting the impact of premium rate increases and lower frequency claims.
Earnings in 2023 reflected the impacts of premium rate increases and lower claims frequencies.
We have lower claims frequencies? Oh, look, because it says right here, earnings, the part he didn't read, benefited from relatively low losses from significant catastrophic events during the year and improved underwriting. So in part, the business is getting more efficient. But also, if you have mild weather at a certain period of time, you're going to have less car accidents. When you have less snow and less rain and less hurricanes, you have less damage to vehicles. So, of course, you're going to have lumpy seasons. And yeah, you could always go, oh, see, they had a good weather season, that one. Greedy bastards, how dare they? They're a scam. Allstate mentions it as well. They mentioned that catastrophe losses for the fourth quarter were low by historic standards. Now, they were slightly higher for Allstate for the year, but the point of this is just to show you that insurance is very lumpy. So of course we could just cherry pick a piece of Berkshire Hathaway's data, ignore the fact that Berkshire Hathaway is telling you Geico actually had a great year in terms of way lower catastrophes, and then let's just ignore the fact that costs for vehicle parts are going up, labor and wages are going up. Let's completely ignore that, and let's just say Warren Buffett is a greedy scumbag, because that's the popular thing to say right now. Let's just completely ignore some of the...
Kevin brings out fair points there, right? But at the end of the day, it gets back. I used to have a little thing over here that showed the inflation. It was something like 22% up, right? Year over year when it came to auto insurance. I mean, it's a hard thing to explain to an average consumer that you're going to have to pay 20% more. And by the way, there's more rate increases likely coming in May and June for a lot of folks out there. Once again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news in regards to that. So it's hard to explain to somebody that you're going to have to pay 20% plus more for your auto insurance this year versus last year, right? That's just insane. That's just insane. And especially when now you take into account the fact that a lot of vehicle pricing was actually down. You look at the latest inflation report, look at new vehicle sales, look at used vehicles, and you're going to actually find some deflation in some of those pockets, in some of those areas, right? So, you know, once again, it's a nuanced subject.
That go into insurance outside of the lumpy aspect, like the over 20% increase in motor vehicle and part prices for replacement parts for cars that get damaged. And keep in mind, insurance costs are really lagging with inflation. That's because you have what's called contract rollover. That is, let's say it's year one and everything's great in your business. Year two, things get really expensive. Well, you don't actually have to start paying those really expensive claims probably until later in that year when you realize, crap, our repairs are getting a lot more expensive. We're going to have to raise premiums in year three. Well, not everybody renews January 1st for their insurance premiums. So all of a sudden you look back and go, dang, year two expenses were way higher than year one. We need to raise our premiums. So in year three, you raise your premiums, but it takes an entire year for people's premiums to actually go up. And then it takes...
So although Kevin's making fair points here, I think a lot of this frustration comes down not just from, okay, now you got to pay 20%, 30% more for your auto insurance or whatever insurance, right? Turn on the TV. Watch a sporting event. Watch a college football game on a Saturday sometime. And tell me who the main ones running just a ridiculous amount of ads are. It's going to be insurance companies. There's a million Allstate ads and State Farm and and they got it, these athletes all sponsored. So they're paying fortunes of money to advertise to you again and again and again and again. I mean, you sit down and watch NFL games or college football on a Saturday or Sunday. and calculate how many insurance ads you see throughout that day. You're not going to have a piece of paper big enough to write all the checks on there. It's ridiculous. And so people are like, my insurance going up 20, 30%, and you guys have all this money to run nonstop ads consistently across the biggest sporting events and televised events all the time. That's where people start to get frustrated. Oh, and they see, this guy got a contract from this company for $10 million, $20 million, and like, oh, cool, so I get to pay 25% more for my car insurance, so you could pay it to that big name athlete to be in your commercial. That's where I think the frustration that I think Sasha's talking about there. Once again, Kevin's making really good, fair points here, but you got to look at it, put your shoe on the foot of an average person who's got to all of a sudden pay 25% more, and then they have to get a million ads in front of their face for that same company. I think it leads to frustration.
More years thereafter, as competition starts innovating and driving prices down again, for those benefits to actually get passed on to individuals, because again, now they're locked in at higher rates. Yes, of course, eventually insurance prices will get pushed back down. How do they get pushed down? By competition. That's how capitalism works. But taking a lagging industry and trying to point out really weird bumps in the road while ignoring lines in earnings reports that are actually critical to what's actually going on is just a perfect way to manipulate your audience again, to make it seem like that you're the one with the only data and there can't be more of an explanation to what's actually going on. Now, part 3.
So then we get to shelter in the inflation data, the only other number that is high.
Dude, no, it's not the only other number that's high. What are you smoking? Funeral expenses, 1.5% on a month. That's over 10% annualized. Multiply all these numbers I'm going to read you by 12 to get an annualized figure of inflation. 2.2% for apparel services. What do we got here? Miscellaneous personal services, 1.3%. Other personal services.
Moral of the story, don't die, because it's going to be very expensive if you do.
Is 0.8%. That works out to over 7%. Times 12, that works out to 9.6% annual inflation. Postage and deliveries up 4.8% on an annual basis. That's the only other number that's high. Wrong. Pet services, including vet, that's up. Look at that, 1.9% in a month. And it's been going up and up every single month. Multiply it by 12, that's 22.8%. Purchases of subscription products up 3.8%. Yes, recreation is only up 0.1% and public transportation is down. But again, motor vehicle repair up 3.1%. Yes, there's vehicle insurance that's up 2.6% on the month. Car and truck rentals are down. Fantastic. But health insurance up 1.2%. Transportation services in total up 1.5%. Hospital services up 1.2%. That's on a month. Again, multiply by 12. Medical care services 0.6%. Household operations 0.8%. Moving and storage 0.7%. Oh, so it makes it even harder for those frickin' tenants to recognize lower rents, which they have to move in order to get lower rents most of the time. And so that increases their costs. What are you smoking, Sasha? It's just shelter, motor vehicle insurance, and electricity, and it's all a scam. You didn't even go into the detailed tables, bro.
Shelter is at 5.7%. And you can see the detailed chart here from the St. Louis Fed, and shelter inflation is coming down, but is coming down very slowly. Shelter is more than 36% of overall inflation, is by far the biggest factor in the overall inflation data. The Federal Reserve says that inflation is much too high. They can't possibly do anything by the rates. They've got to keep the rates higher for longer. High rates mean that shelter inflation is coming down way more slowly because the interest rates on mortgages are being kept artificially high. And
no, we're wrong. First of all, Sasha implies that mortgage rates are part of the shelter component, so higher rates are actually driving up inflation. No, mortgage rates are not part of the shelter component. Yes, about 36% of shelter is made up by owner's equivalent rents and shelter, the cost of housing. But those are based on rent costs, not mortgage costs. And yes, rent costs are flat year over year, and in some cases they're down. Actually, in many parts of the country, from peak, rents are coming down. There's a big problem. Rents are really, really sticky when it comes to rent going down. It's very rare, almost never happens, that a landlord's going to call you up and go, hey, market rents are going down, so we're going to lower your rent. In order for you to get a lower rent, you're going to have to pack up your bags and move. So actually, the realization of a lower rental inflation coming through CPI is a lag for an exact reason. There's a reason there's a lag. The reason the lag exists is because people have to pack up their crap and actually move to get a lower market rent. So that's why I know everybody bags on the Fed for having lagging shelter inflation reads. I've bagged about it too. I look at the market rents. I go, market rents are going sky high. But the problem is, market rents do go up really fast, and then everybody gets their rate hike pretty dang quickly, even if they stay in the property, but they don't actually get their rent reduction until they move. That's a problem. So you have a structural problem that keeps inflation high. And yeah, you could blame greedy landlords as well. It's obvious that landlords are going to benefit from basically saying move or pay. That's inconvenient to the tenant, so it keeps rents stickier, which is a problem. But the fact that Sasha is implying that mortgage costs are included in CPI is wrong. Now, you could make the stretched argument that because mortgage rates are high, more people are wanting to rent, and that's what's causing rent inflation. But again, rents are going down year over year because there's plenty of new construction that has helped lower rents. Rents are falling, especially in areas like Texas or Florida, where you're having to do 2 to 3 month rent concessions just to get people into a unit. That's a problem. So yes, there is going to be a rent reset down. But again, the problem for the consumer is you're going to have to move to realize it. So what is the true problem with inflation continuing? Is it corporate greed? Not for the examples that he gave, probably to some extent. Yeah, sure, I know that's a popular thing to say, but Sasha's arguments are almost all completely wrong. There's no mention of the big elephant in the room, which is record fiscal spending. The money printer is running beautifully for the government, and that needs to get limited so we can finally slow the spread of inflation. And this is a broad-based spread of inflation. This is not just inflation coming to you from vehicle insurance. It's pets, it's medical care insurance, and medical care expenses. And
yeah, let me show you guys, some stuff that worries me here, okay? Before I pull that up and show you what worries me, should Sasha respond to that video? Let me think. If I was in Sasha's shoes, would I respond to that video? Probably not. I'd probably just let it go. Because I don't think he's going to be able to make a strong enough argument to then come back at Kevin, and then Kevin come back again. So if I was in Sasha's shoes, probably not worth a response there. Because I don't think there's a way he can flip that around and win that whole debate or argument or whatever. So anyways, that's kind of my opinion in regards to that. Now, in regards to something that worries me out there, right? And I've been speaking about this on the channel so far, a lot recently, is obviously GSG. The commodity index in general is rolling. We have oil rolling as well. Where is oil? So oil's off to a 20% start so far this year. So with commodities running like that, it definitely makes you a little worried about what could happen in the back half of the year when it comes to inflation numbers. Because at the end of the day, almost everything in this world is made from commodities, right? And so if commodities keep going on a big bull cycle here over the next several months, that could potentially lead us into much higher goods inflation in the back half of the year. Potentially even services inflation could somehow be affected in that. And so that's something to at least be a little fearful of in regards to these inflation numbers, which are still not even coming in great. And that's with commodities, not having necessarily the most bullish year last year, right? If this is a big bullish year for commodities, that could lead us to some big inflation problems back half of this year and actually even into 2025. Best case scenario is commodities don't really go up anymore this year. They kind of flatline from here or head down. In best case scenarios, oil doesn't go on a big run this summer. If oil goes on a big run and next thing you know, it's 105, 110, anything even over $100 a barrel, is going to be bad. And obviously that would create insane gas prices. I mean, you could be looking at gas prices of $6 to $8 in California. If we're talking about oil over $100, I mean, much of the country would be well over $5, if not into the $6s. And so that could be an ugly situation. So let's hope that doesn't happen there. I enjoyed that video overall. I wish it wasn't so personal, but some of these guys, they get pretty personal in there. So I enjoy the parts of just kind of looking at the data, kind of going through it all. Here's kind of my opinion on this, my opinion on that. I wish they kind of I know some people enjoy that kind of name calling and stuff like that. Me, I'm let's just look at the numbers. Let's just see what's going on here. And that will be that, just kind of got to move on from all that stuff, you know, and how you might have used to feel or whatever. So, all right, guys, appreciate you joining me. Much love as always, and have a great day.